everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead The Ones Who Live video. So I never thought I'd be doing a video like this, but I do want to focus on Silas, and I actually want to ask the question, will Silas return in episode 5? Now, I've seen a lot of people discussing this in the Discord and whatnot, and I really honestly, at first, I was kind of like, this seems a little ridiculous, and a part of me kind of believes that, like, I don't know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for him to show up there, but again, like, they've introduced a lot of, like, characters randomly, and well, I don't want to say randomly, but like they've shown up for like one episode and then were killed off, right? I'm not saying Silas would be killed off, but I feel like it makes sense for where World Beyond was anyways and what that story was to like going into at least this first season here of The Ones Who Live to be like, yeah, we'll have one character from that show, you know, appear here and maybe it connects overall with the story. And if it is Silas, I think it could make sense, especially because some of the story of World Beyond, you know, towards the end was, you know, what the CRM was trying to do to Portland. And so, you know, if Silas says certain things, listen, Nat, like tells Rick and Michonne a lot of stuff, then I could see how a lot of this could make sense overall. And yeah, but I do want to talk about this and give some thoughts because obviously in the episode 5 teaser, we do see a character, or at least a character that people believe is actually Silas. And honestly, at first I was like, well, no way. Like there's no way. But after looking at the images for quite a while, I'm just like, maybe. Like it actually might make some sense. So yeah, I do want to talk about this. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, what I'm referencing here actually is a shot that actually happens in the episode 5 teaser, in which we do see a character that, I mean, kind of looks like Silas. Like, it is hard to say. It really is hard to say because you can't really tell a lot from, I mean, you can't see the character at all. You know, this person here is like trying to push this person away, it looks like. So I'm just like, I feel like it's probably a walker. Like, to me, this seems like a walker. But just because of, you know, the character kind of looking like Silas, I'm like, maybe it makes sense, right? Like, it's hard to tell, but it's, again, at first I was just like, well, no way. But when you're looking at the image for a while, you're kind of like, you know what? This kind of makes some sense. Like maybe this is actually Silas. I don't know. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. But what I found very interesting is that the actor who plays Silas, he posted on his Instagram, I think it was an Instagram story, referencing, I guess, people talking about, you know, maybe him showing up in The Walking Dead at some point or whatever, right? So it's kind of interesting because he posted that recently. So I was just like, wait, why are you posting that now? Maybe he's just sort of like posting it just for people to sort of talk about it or whatever. But I don't know. To me, you know, combining that with a lot of, you know, I guess this shot right here, I'm just really questioning it now. I'm like, maybe Silas actually does show up here, right? Like that could make some sense for the story. Like, could he show up? Yes, obviously. The last time that we saw him, you know, he was working with Jadis and whatnot. So it seemed like, you know, I mean, at this point here, maybe Jadis is actually, I guess, just working with him. And I think it makes some sense for Jadis' story as well, because if she's going to die in this episode, or if she does, I have no idea if she's going to. It's sort of my theory or idea right now that she's going to. But if she does, then it makes sense to have Silas a part of that, because obviously where we left Silas, you know, he was with Jadis. And so I think that it could make sense, you know, if Jadis is trying to find Rick and Michonne, maybe Silas is out there helping Jadis try and find Rick and Michonne, right? And so maybe this is how Jadis actually finds them. And so maybe this shot here is actually Silas, right? Like it could be Silas, you know, dressed up as, I guess, just not a CRM soldier or anything like that. And it could be that maybe, or maybe Silas just ended up, you know, leaving the CRM or whatever. I mean, I don't know how he would do that, but you know what I mean? Like maybe something like that did happen eventually. It is kind of hard to say. Like, again, that's why for me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have Silas in the story here, but if you do want to introduce a character from World Beyond on this show, he's probably one of the best characters to do that, right? I feel like Silas is probably the character to show, right? Because he is like the fan favorite, at least from what I've noticed anyways. Like fans seem to really, really like Silas, and I think he's like the fan favorite from the show. I mean, he got the more interesting storyline at the end, right? Because he was with Jadis and stuff, so I think that's probably why. And yeah, I could see that happening here. I mean, maybe Silas is in this episode and then dies. You know, it'd be really weird if Silas just like showed up and then died in this episode. Like if that did happen, it depends on the story. If it was told right, maybe I'd be okay with it. I think I might ultimately be okay with it if that did happen, but that also really feels like Morales, right? Like when Morales came back, it was so exciting, and then all of a sudden he died immediately, right? That was definitely very different because he just showed up at the very end of episode 2 of season 8, and then he dies very early on in episode 3 of season 8. So I was like, what was the point of that, right? Like, and that's sort of my things. Like Gimple will do things like that are very exciting, and people are like, whoa, what is this? And then it doesn't really mean anything overall. So I hope that, if Silas does show up, that it matters to the story and it's not like something like that, basically, because that's just, that was very frustrating. I remember all the hype after Morales actually came back. People thought, or at least I thought anyways, that like, oh, maybe he'll be a part of the story now. Maybe he'll actually, he's a savior. What does this mean and all of that? Like, I was actually so excited. And then all of a sudden he dies very early on. And I was so mad. I remember just being so upset about that. And so what do I actually think about this? Could this actually be Silas? I mean, yeah, I could see it, I guess, being him. I mean, I honestly, I find it so hard to believe. I don't know why I find it so hard to believe. I guess it's because I'm not really expecting it. I sort of, in my head mapped out where I think the season's going to go. And I never really thought any of the World Beyond characters would be a part of this. I thought that they were probably not going to be mentioned at all. But I guess it does make sense that if you are going to have a character from World Beyond, that you would actually, do that at some point in this show here. Because, I mean, obviously World Beyond was a show that focused on the CRM and whatnot, and obviously really did hype up, the Ones Who Live. I mean, back then we thought it was going to be the Rick movie trilogy, but that eventually turned into the Ones Who Live, which I honestly, looking back now, the movie trilogy wouldn't have worked. It just really would not have worked. Like, obviously people would be excited about it, but I think the thing with The Walking Dead is that people like watching from episode to episode, like there's something about waiting week to week for episodes instead of like binging it all or going to watch a movie. There's just something that's a little off about that. I feel like for Walking Dead fans, because you need time to absorb the story. And, Walking Dead fans, I really feel like focus a lot on like, what the characters are up to, and throughout the next week, before the next episode airs, there's a lot of focus on like, what does this mean and whatnot, right? And I think that happens a lot more on this show than it does with other shows. And so I think that's why the movie trilogy probably wouldn't have worked, because after you watch the movie, then you gotta wait 2 years to watch the next one. And then, I'm assuming 2 years anyways, maybe it's 2 or 3 years, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's kind of I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think the TV show format works. And so World Beyond, I think, introduced a lot of what we know here with the CRM, and it makes sense that at some point they would have a character from that show in this show. And out of all the characters, a lot of those characters, I guess, are at Portland or somewhere around there. Silas is the one character that it just makes sense because of where his story ended. So maybe Silas does actually show up here. I don't know, because did he leave the CRM? No, there's no way he left the CRM. Like, Rick and Michonne are having the hardest time trying to escape. There's no way that he's going to escape, right? So I think that maybe it makes sense that him and Jadis are actually working together here, and he found Rick and Michonne and then, eventually told Jadis. And so maybe that's a reveal at some point here in the episode. I do think that if the episode sort of plays out like Rick and Michonne find this place or whatever, and then they meet these two other characters, and one of them is Silas, then, for a lot of us fans, we're going to be like, oh, that's actually really bad. Because if you met Silas knows Jadis, and now, yeah, that probably explains why Jadis is here. So again, like, it could make sense. Like, this actually does make sense that Silas could be here in this episode, but it would just be so like, I don't even want to say random, because it's not random. It makes sense. Just for me, for some reason, it would feel like it would be so random, because I'm just not expecting him to show up in any way. But again, like, the character here kind of looks like Silas a little bit, and then the actor posted something on his Instagram that was kind of related to it. So I'm just like, is there something here? Like, is he actually going to show up here? I am very fast in that. So what do I actually think about all of this? Do I think Silas is going to show up here? I honestly don't know. Again, like, I wasn't even going to do a video on this because I thought it was just so ridiculous. I was like, no, there's no way. Like, I kept brushing it off, and then I eventually was like, well, let me hear what people are saying. Let's just kind of see. And then I saw a lot of you guys in the Discord talking about this, and I was like, wait a minute, this actually, maybe this actually does mean something. And then I went and saw that the actor who plays Silas posted something on his Instagram, so I was like, this is interesting. This is actually really interesting. There might be something more to this here. So I'm actually wondering now if, yeah, Silas could return here. So definitely post all your thoughts down below. Do you think Silas is going to be returning to The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, or not, I guess The Ones Who Live, but to The Walking Dead in general, like The Walking Dead universe? Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. I will be doing a video after this focused on Major General Beal, because, yeah, today in the Discord, there was a lot of discussion about Major General Beal, and apparently there's a speech that he makes, or there's like dialogue that's like very long. Like, the actor who plays Major General Beal, Terry O'Quinn, he actually referenced that in a comicbook.com article, and again, a lot of us were sort of talking about that today in the Discord. forward. And I went and watched the interview, and I was like, wait, he does actually say that. And also, not even that, we haven't seen that scene yet. Episode 5, it doesn't seem like we're going to get that. So I'm assuming it's going to be in the finale, right? So I think in the finale, we could get like this really epic speech from Major General Beal, and it could be the echelon briefings, right? Like it could be him explaining everything, saying like literally, maybe he says like, we started the Walker virus, or like we're doing this, or could be references to variant walkers or whatever. And it's like really, really shocking. And it's like this really epic speech. And he tells Rick, like that could be honestly how this season ends. It could be really, really shocking and actually end on a really crazy cliffhanger. So yeah, I'm gonna do that video next. So definitely stay tuned for that. That'll be out later on today. So post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.